But Andromeda Flame is coming soon. I'm going to send her the link. And whoever is coming soon. I'm going to send her the link. And whoever is great. So, okay, you joined. Let me see if I can get you on. Hang on. Oh, here we go. Inviting. Okay, inviting. Okay, perfect. This is the wildest thing I've ever seen. Okay, my love. Welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
From where?
Why are we getting that echo again? Hold on, let me mute and I'll just unmute when I speak.
Okay, cool. So, we're going to be talking about a lot of good, cool things. We're going to be talking about Yeshua. Do you want to talk about Yeshua? Let's talk about Yeshua.
Always.
Yeah. Go ahead. Shoot.
Where do we start with Yeshua? I think let's start with Yeshua versus Jesus. Okay. So Jesus is a name that we were given in the Bible, translated from the Greek Jesus. And there are various translations of this name. One of them, like if you listen to Billy Carson, he talks about this actually coming from Hail Zeus, whereas the man was Yeshua. And there's documentation of this. In fact, Yeshua ben Joseph was actually his name. And this body that the ascended master Yeshua possessed in that incarnation 2,000 years ago is an example of living and teaching through love. And if you've ever worked with the energy of Yeshua, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeshua is an ascended master, is an energy of pure unconditional love, and yet fearlessness. Fearlessness to do what is needed, fearlessness to speak the truth to power, and righteous anger. Mm-hmm. And he showed all of this in that short incarnation 2,000 years ago. Now, we've been lied to about Yeshua for various reasons. But all institutions which are, and let's face it, let's go woohoo with this, right? Let's go properly woohoo with this. But all institutions which are Anunnaki governed and driven or reptilian, they all have the ethos of control. And one of the most effective ways of controlling people is by controlling the narrative and controlling what they're allowed to know. And so in 325 AD, when the First Ecumenical Council of Nicaea met to determine what we were allowed to know, they edited and clipped the texts in such a way that it completely undermined the central messages of Yeshua. Yeah, okay, love was still in there, love thy neighbor. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. All of this stuff was still there. But the story about his divine union, sorry, excuse me, I've been struggling with a throat infection. All the messages about divine union with his divine counterpart, Mary of Magdalene, were completely scrubbed from the text. And Mary of Magdalene was painted as a fallen woman, as a WHORE, when actually she was his wife, mother of his child. They had a daughter, Sarah, and in every way an equal to him, spiritually, intellectually, and in terms of continuing his ministry after his body was dropped in the most brutal fashion. And if we examine the Gnostic texts, we actually see how Yeshua respected women when many men did not. This editing of these texts, this suppression of the genuine text, the genuine story, has maintained separation consciousness for millennia now. It has presented divine love as impossible. It has presented Yeshua as someone who pitied Mary of Magdalene rather than loved and respected her. It has perpetuated a narrative of separation of the genders, of separation on the basis of race and class. And it's done so much damage to our consciousness, our collective consciousness. And honestly, it's time that we reclaimed that. It's time that we actually reclaimed Yeshua. Moving away from Jesus, moving away from, and I'm not denigrating religion in any way. You follow whichever religion you choose to. And if you wish to refer to Yeshua as Jesus, fine, that is your decision. However, recognize that the name Jesus is something that we were given. It's something that we were told. And if Billy Carson is to be believed, and in general he is, I think you'll agree, Tony.
Yeah.
If Billy Carson is to be believed, then every time you say the name Jesus, you're saying Hail Zeus. Words are important. And knowledge is important. And that knowledge has been concealed from us.
And
it's time for the fight back.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna read something to you guys. Okay, I want you to pay attention. Why is this important? Why did we bring this up? Well, before Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, there was Krishna Radha. And I bring that up because if you look at every religion, even Buddha had a consort. And it's almost like a naughty picture, a statue, a naughty drawing. If you look up Buddha and his consort, you'll see what I mean. You'll see what I mean. And this is tantric union with two divine lovers. So why is this important when we deal with misogyny, toxic patriarchy, and so forth? Well, because it has given us the first taste of gender wars, which we're experiencing right now. I want to read something to you, if you don't mind, sister. It's by Freddie Silver. It's the First Templars Nation. For some of you men who actually study history and who are into the Knights Templars, okay, Knights Templars, I'm going to read to you, and you women should know this. We need to get educated, okay, because the fuckery needs to stop. And the reason why that needs to stop is because the religious orders wanted, look, when you make men celibate in the church, right, it's unhealthy. And the deviancy that erupted from that tightrope around everyone's root chakra was a real poison that evolved into a lot of trauma that finally came to light in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and so forth. Let me read you this. It's the back of the book by Freddie Silver, First Templar Nation, and it says, How 11 Knights Created a New Country and a Refuge for the Grail. Now, you guys know by now, right, that the Grail is Mary Magdalene. Let me read it. Conventional history claims that 9 men formed a brotherhood called the Knights Templar in Jerusalem in 1118 to provide protection for pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land. Overturning this long-established historical narrative, Freddie Silva shows that the Order of the Temple existed a decade earlier on the opposite side of Europe, that the protection of pilgrims was entrusted to a separate organization, and that in league with the Cistercian monks and the equally mysterious Order of Sion, the Templars executed one of the history's most daring and covert plans, the creation of Europe's first nation state, Portugal, with one of their own as king. Including over 700 references, many from new and rare sources, Freddie Silva can speak Portuguese, can read ancient, in fact, he's a linguist. So he can read shit that many of these other writers were not able to read or translate for himself. Many from new and rare sources, Silva reveals Portugal, not Jerusalem. Did you hear that? Portugal, not Jerusalem, as the first Templar stronghold. He shows how there were 11 founding members and how the first king of Portugal, a secret Templar, was related to Bernard de Clairvaux, head of the Cistercians. The author explains the Templars' motivation to create a country far from the grasp of Rome, where they could conduct their living resurrection initiation, whose candidates were declared risen from the dead, a secret from which the church silenced millions, and which the Templars protected to the death. Placing the intrepid knights in a previously unknown time and place, Silva's historical narrative reveals the Portuguese roots of key founding members, their relationship with the Order of Sion, the Templars' unshakable devotion to Mary of Magdalene and John the Baptist, and how they protected a holy bloodline in Portugal. He also provides evidence of secret Templar holy sites, initiation chambers, and hidden passageways throughout Portugal, often coinciding with pagan and Neolithic temples, and explains how their most important site forms a perfect triangle with the Abbey of Mount Sion in Jerusalem and the Osirian Temple in Egypt. The author, this book is basically rewriting the understanding of what the Templars were doing and what the Holy Grail really was. And I know that it was inferred with, what was his name, Dan Brown, who stole pretty much the whole premise of, his famous book, I forgot the title, but Dan Brown stole everything from Holy Blood, Holy Grail, which was about the Knights Templars and Mary of Magdalena. Okay, hey, Nando, good. I've been feeling Portugal for years. On the side note, he's saying I've been feeling called to Portugal. Then go, because I'm going to tell you something. My husband felt a real connect. In fact, I remember he turned to me and said, "We were Knights Templars," just out of nowhere, and I was like, "I think you're right." So many of us from our past lives have feeling strong connection and ties, and we even weep. The movie you might want to watch is called The Knights. What was it called again? Fuck, I'm trying to remember. With the movie I'm talking about. What is it called? My mind went blank.
One with Morgan Freeman.
No, not at all.
Not that one.
No, it's directed by Ridley Scott. What is it called? Damn it! It came out right on the heels of 9/11, which fucking put the movie. It never made any money, but it's an amazing movie. I'm trying to remember it, but anyway, if the Knights Templars felt that intense about protecting the issues, the progenies of Yeshua and Mary Magdalena, if the Holy Grail was Mary Magdalena's womb, and the issue, meaning children, meaning a child, and this is coming out more and more, okay? No one's fucking refuting this, okay? The Vatican's not even refuting this, so, or else they would. Trust me on that one. There must be, when the separation of this divine couple was removed, it became like a collapse. And it starts with Adam and Eve. And the first, and I'm shocked to this, I'm shocked. I get so frustrated because supposed people who've actually read the Holy Book don't know about Lilith. They have no clue about Lilith. So as far as they're concerned, the first woman that shows up is Eve. When it's the second woman, it's his second wife, right? You want to expound on that and how they have been working on damaging the union between the divine masculine and divine feminine for fucking centuries? Can we talk about that? That's really important.
That's really important. The way. So if you tie up the Old Testament, right, with galactic history, which you don't have to look too far these days to find this, but you realize that actually the Garden of Eden, as it's presented in the book of Genesis, is not actually what it was, right? The Garden of Eden was a center of creation, but it was very much the Lyrans, right, and the Elohim, okay, who were creating this beautiful Garden of Eden. The idea that, firstly, that women were created from Adam's rib is something which has been enormously destructive, so much so that really until the advent of radiology, it was believed that women had one fewer rib than men, right? That people actually believed that women were anatomically different from men. But also the presentation of the woman as the downfall of men. And that's the whole point of that story.
Yeah.
But what's not mentioned is that Adam's first consort, if you like, was Lilith.
Yep.
Right? This kind of Kali energy, badass of a woman,
Yeah.
unapologetic, sensual, feminine, all of these things. None of that mentioned, and yet Eve, this meek woman who tempted Adam,
Word of bullshit. Demure. There you go.
Muir, right, is presented as the archetype of the feminine. And again, it was this temptation that was seen as the fall of men, right? And women are responsible. Women are deviant. Women are not to be trusted. You know, hell, 1,500 years after the birth of Yeshua, let's just take women who have intuition and gifts as healers, and let's just, put them on stakes, right? So the denigration of the feminine is very much tied into Abrahamic religious philosophy, and I use the word philosophy in a very, very loose sense, because philosophy is all about thought and understanding and seeking the truth. And there's very little truthful about that. Throughout the Old Testament, you have fire and brimstone, right? A God, in inverted commas, who demands blood sacrifice, who demands brutality, who demands wars, who presents plagues of locusts or water or drought and famine on humans. What they've done is they've packaged the story of Enlil, the Anunnaki king. They've packaged that into the Old Testament to keep us afraid. Because the Anunnaki ruled through fear. And humans were told that if they didn't do exactly what the Anunnaki told them, that they would be damned for eternity. And that's exactly the message in the Old Testament. But it started with separating us. It started with creating suspicion of the feminine, creating the idea that the feminine should be meek and unheard, and nothing more than the property and creation of men. And this is why they had to suppress the Gnostic texts. And this is why they had to then suppress, in the way that they did, the Templars.
Well, I mean, they have to protect. I have to just also, I need to keep reminding everyone that when we talk about the feminine in the past, you masculines, I hope you realize many of you were women during that period. Many of us who are women today were masculines in that period, or whatever, however it fell into place. But 2,000 years ago, when we were having incarnations at the rate, at the speed that was just, we were having 5 incarnations, 6 incarnations in a 100-year period. We were going in, because of the amnesia. But I just want to always remind you that when we talk about the feminine, we are also talking about the feminine now embodied in a masculine incarnation. I hope you guys realize that. I mean, I hope you get it, because that's important, or else here we go again in the separation of genders. We are souls. We are androgynous. Okay, so when we talk about the decimation of the feminine, we're looking at the decimation of the balance of the yin and yang. I mean, shit. This is all the symbols are about the balance of the feminine and masculine in some ways, right?
And we're talking about the separation within ourselves, okay? The separation of the masculine and feminine energies within ourselves. Because as souls, we are androgynous, but to be truly awake, there has to be a balance of masculine and feminine. There has to be union between the masculine and feminine within us all. This is where it gets complicated with twins, but that's a slightly separate but not separate argument. But the masculine and feminine, if we don't embrace the masculine and feminine within us, the product of our soul's learning through thousands of incarnations, hundreds of thousands of incarnations, then we're always going to maintain separation in the 3D.
Yeah.
So by understanding that separation starts with each one of us, when we say things like, as women, right, if we say things like, oh, all men are shit, right? All men are toxic, or they are...
Well, cheat. It's another one that's big.
What, sorry?
I mean, cheat.
Yeah, all men cheat, right? Or men say, you know, oh, women are just too bloody needy, right? Or whatever, okay? Or like, women are psychos, right? That's the new one, okay? Or, you know, women are either Madonnas or WHOREs. When we hear stuff like that, that is coming from a place of separation.
Yep.
And it's coming from this place of millennia of propaganda that as men and women, we are separate and should be at war. Sure, there are differences, okay, like hormonal differences that happen when you incarnate into a masculine or a feminine body. Of course there are. We're not denying that. But coming back to your soul, recognizing that this body is a temporary vessel, which is going to enable you to do things in this realm, recognizing the eternal and androgynous nature of your soul, is key to ending that separation, key to respecting both the masculine and feminine energies. And just to reiterate what Tony said, we're talking about the energies here. We're not talking about what's between your legs.
Thank you. And I think when I look at, like, there's the Chartres, it's called Chartres. It's Cathedral Chartres. So you've got Notre Dame in Paris, and you've got the Cathedral Chartres. The Chartres was created by the Knights Templar using a sacred geometry, and it's dedicated to the Blue Madonna, aka Black Madonna. Do you get me? These guys actually revered the sacred feminine, and they were hated for it. And because they were wealthy, because they were probably massive manifestors, right? They could manifest wealth. They were smart. They were good at what they did in terms of they walked in their light. Abundance of gold and jewels and things of that came to them effortlessly, right? So there was jealousy and envy. You guys do know about the Knights Templars, right? I mean, why is every single aspect of our history that brought us to the moment that we stand right here, pretty much on the precipice, right, of a new age? is really based on the fact that we were fucked over by the 1%, and the 1% directed by draconians, and the 1% controlled by the draconians, connecting still to this day with draconians, but our beginnings with the Anunnaki, and just there's been so much fuckery between some of these massively egoic souls that you would think are more advanced than us, believe it or not, right? Because they know, they remember, they know how to manifest. They have powers that we can't even match, right? But there's something that we have they don't have, and that is this incredible ability to love without condition. We are closer to God. And that's why the twin flame dynamics and twin ray are so interesting, because that's when we shine our brightest. We get to give this unconditional love to this other human being. And it's something that these two types of species of humanoid, well, one's reptilian, the other one is humanoid, they don't have that. Because it's all about power, brutality, control, wanting more. I think we can recognize this in the 1%. What are your thoughts on that? Does that make sense?
As you were saying that, I was just like hearing like divine love is not some like fluffy, cuddly thing, right? Divine love has to be suppressed because it is massively powerful. Even Einstein recognized that love is the most powerful force in the universe. And if they allow divine love to flourish on earth, everything about their fist of power, the boot on our neck, everything about that will melt away, because separation will end. Fear will end. Divine love is not easy. It's not the easy option. It's not some kind of, delulu fantasy, us sitting there with our heads in the clouds. No, it's hard, bloody work. And it's hard work because we're trying to do it in a place that is riddled with separation, with fear, with hatred, with low vibrational beings and emotions. And yet that one thing that we can do, divine love, unconditional love, is the one thing that will break through millennia of conditioning, millennia of separation. Loving without fear is, and this is going to sound paradoxical, but loving without fear in the 3D is a scary prospect. But as soon as you open yourself up to that, it no longer becomes scary. It becomes the essence of your being, and you walk in love and truth. And that is our weapon. That is our greatest weapon against this, because this is a war fought on many levels, but first energetically and spiritually. If we can say, fuck you, I no longer accept your separation. I no longer accept your hold on my chakras. I no longer accept you closing off my heart. As soon as you say that, they attack you. And we've all had that. And then they back off because they realize they're not winning. Yeah. And they move on to individuals who are susceptible. Walking in love, walking in your truth, walking in your power are one and the same thing. And this is how we cut through the narrative of the 1%, the reptilian, draconian, Anunnaki agenda, which has kept us in 3D, in separation, in fear, in poverty, in lack. It's time we armed ourselves with the knowledge and the truth, and we stood in our light and our power and our love. Sorry, I'm ranting, but yeah.
Right. Because that's exactly that's it. So as long as these powers have us, and I really am urging you to go on Gaia.com and look up Renegade David Icke's story. because I really want you to talk. I want you to get educated so you understand how long people have been banging the drum about this, and how long, and what people, and the cost to people's honor, and how they were treated to spread the truth of this. The only reason why Dan Brown made it is Hollywood said yes, chomped on it, and it was, if it was fun and giggles, okay? And still, even with that, your average person all over the world didn't really understand what had just been revealed. You know what I mean? It's shocking to me.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
I remember reading the Da Vinci Code, and okay, like I'll be clear, I'm not a massive fan of Dan Brown's style of writing. Okay, I find it kind of like overly sensationalist. Okay, but the book and the movie should have triggered, and I believe that was most likely his design.
Yeah.
But they should have triggered us looking into this more. And as you said, Gaia.com, I mean, it will take a lifetime to work through all of the incredible wisdom that you have access to on Gaia.com. We're not advertising here. It's just an incredible resource for knowledge. And if you've got a block, or you're struggling with something, and you go onto Gaia.com and you simply type in things like self-love or abundance or whatever, you will get 10-15 videos.
Absolutely.
That will help you navigate that. It's an incredibly, I mean, I can't believe that we actually have this resource now. It's like we live in such an age where we are able to access this knowledge. Whereas people used to have to travel on horseback to libraries in distant parts of the world to gain this knowledge. We have it at our fingertips, so there's no excuse, not anymore.
No, and so it's about realizing what is it's going to take. So if you're suffering, which if you're a starseed, from the giddy up as a child, you knew that you had landed on. You were like, what just happened here? Why did I land here? Like, it doesn't feel good. I don't feel good in my body. I don't even feel good in this body, right? So there's all these weird feelings, and it's not something most children are going to share with their adult parents or sibling. It's not something you can't even articulate these feelings in the beginning of these incarnations, right? And so you're going through this, and probably your first dark night of the soul, we're going to put this out there so you guys don't think it's a twin flame thing, was when you were a child or a teenager. And it's a mark, no offense, it's a mark of intelligence, because anybody would go, this is wrong, the system's not working for me, I don't feel good here, I don't feel safe here. The vibration of starseed souls that incarnate in these human bodies, the human bodies in 3D are very dense. They're so dense that the brain, this 3D brain filtering system, is easily able to bring about complete, total, utter amnesia. The fact that we're able to remember, the fact that many of you woke up recently, or you've always been awakened, or you awoke 10 years ago, whatever the hell your story is still, no matter how you woke up or when, is still a fucking act. It's a miracle. Because these systems that we have, the hardware, right, called flesh and bone that we inhabit, it's very dense. Not to mention, half of the shit we should be hearing, seeing, we can't, because the vibrations are much higher than the vibrations we exist in a day to day. I'm sorry, it's like fucking 3 o'clock in the morning, so my brain is a little fried. But what do you have to add to that? Because I really want us to talk about the reality of the density of these bodies, and how proud you should be to rubbing your eyes from the deep sleep of amnesia. And I'm trying to, I'm hoping that these discussions will help you seek out with some urgency and to catch up with all the readings, all the videos, as many as you can, to feed your hungry soul for lost information so that you can relax at some point and go, oh, now I get it. All right, cool. Does that make sense? So your nervous system can settle and go, well, this is temporary. This is where we're going. This is why this is happening. This is who fucked us over for thousands of years. It would be good because knowledge is power. What are your thoughts on the density of it being with your background, medical background? What are your thoughts on the density of these brains?
When you go through your first dark night of the soul, and I was about 6 years old when I went through my first dark night of the soul, and you realize that something's not quite right. You don't know what, but you feel heavy. Everything feels heavy. And one of the reasons is because you start understanding that this density is not what your soul is used to. You can't quite articulate it, right? And many of us will go through many dark nights of the soul before we finally, as you were saying, rub our eyes awake.
Yeah.
And it's a process of learning and awakening so that the density is just something you accept while you're here. It still doesn't feel right. It's still difficult. Many of us who are starseeds find human constructs very difficult to understand. I find the idea of famine almost impossible to understand how that is allowed to happen. Hunger or destitution, because it simply does not happen on our home planets. But accepting the density while you're here is important, because what you cannot do is expend your energy struggling with the density. You accept that you are here. Either you volunteered or you were required to come back to break cycles, to learn. But whatever reason, your soul accepted the challenge of being in this body and understood that ascending while in this third density is very difficult. You should all be really proud of yourselves that you've managed to lift the veil.
Yeah.
And you've started to remember who you are and why you're here and what that actually means, not just for yourself, but for the collective.
Yeah.
And let's face it, right? There are dark nights of the soul and there are dark nights of the soul, right? And the dark night of the soul, either singular or plural, that you go through because of meeting your twin is probably the deepest and the darkest. Because in order to finally lift the veil of separation, which is the densest, most determined veil on all of us as humans, you really need to be forced to stop and go within and ask the questions. And you have a choice. Do I listen? Or do I stay in the dark? There are two choices.
Yeah.
And when you choose to listen and your eyes and ears open and you manage to do your spiritual hygiene, even when you feel like you don't want to be here anymore, that's when you're winning, believe it or not. If you can maintain meditation chakra work, being a decent human being, even when you feel total collapse, that is when Source will look at you, give you a pat on the back, and gradually, little by little, lift you out of the dark night of the soul. And to do that, when surrounded by 3D consciousness, in a construct that is designed to separate you from yourself, separate you from your beloved, separate you from understanding your energetic power, all of these separations, when you can do that, when you can ascend, when you can learn, when you can remember, even in that density, the reward is ascension. The reward is enlightenment. And the reward is understanding your power as a being of love. So it's important, and we all have these moments. We all have these moments of despair. Every single one of us. Some of us every single day. But don't lose heart. The fact that you're here, the fact that you're awake enough to be listening to this, is something you should be really, really proud of. There's some beings that don't incarnate here because it's simply too dense for them. Their vibration would fall because of the constructs, because of everything that has been done to us for millennia. That's not a victim mindset. It's just the truth. But understand this, and start understanding this from the perspective of your energy body, right? Joe Dispenza talks about energy centers. Tony and I call them chakras. You start with strengthening your chakras, every chakra, every day. And as you're working on each chakra, understand how that energy has been co-opted and harvested and blocked. It's no good doing these meditations to open your third eye if your root chakra is in barbed wire. Okay? And understand how the system has taken us away from that. They don't want us to be enlightened. So we stick two fingers up to them and say, I'm going to do it, whether you like it or not.
But that's where the agenda started a long time ago regarding the divine feminine and masculine. Because as long as the divine masculine and feminine were in separation with hate, with competition, with envy, with third party energies, lots of third party. Oh, lots of third party. And in fact, it starts with Lilith, Eve, and Adam, ironically, if you want to start there. In other words, trying to separate people from each other is the only way they can win. And when you are going through despair, right, in the particular system that we live in, many of you, having been starseeds on other planets, have lived in beautiful systems. Like, yes, you've lived on rough systems. You've lived on warring planets, planets that were, that went through some shit. But you've also been in beautiful systems that actually showed you that there is such a thing as joy and freedom. There is such a thing as abundance equally dispersed for everyone. And your soul remembers that truth. And so some of you are rebelling against the system, trying to figure out, where does this come from? Well, it came from your soul's wisdom that it's lived better life. It's lived better infrastructural systems. kinder, generous systems, and this is not it. Does anybody have comments or questions? I want to see what else you guys are saying. I know Jessica says, I always let my kids rest when they need to because I knew the amount of awareness they were building into their bodies was massive compared to other kids. What's interesting about other kids, it is interesting to compare other kids, right? Because we just had a mass, issue with, I hate the words they make us fucking say like we're fucking two. What's the word for GUNS? It's pew pew. Is that what we're supposed to? Why are we accepting? Can I ask you? I want to ask you guys for a minute. Why are we accepting words like grape and geno and code words and and colors, and why are we to the point unalivened? To the point where I'm starting to realize that people are saying it in front of me, not in social media. I'll meet a person on the streets, in a supermarket, in my house, and they'll use the same words. I need you guys to step up and throw in your opinion. Why do you think this is being accepted? Why are we being edited to this level? Do you think that shows freedom of speech? Do you really think it's real? Do you think this is okay to do that? Do you think what do you think George Carlin would do in the particular timeline we live in, where words like that are hidden? Like grape kills, that word just has me going. Why do you think this is? What is this about? Okay, I really want to know. Yeah, we do it in person now. Well, I don't. I correct people. When people say, I had somebody say on 11, I go, no, you use the correct words. We're grown-ups here. We're not going to let these MFers tell us how to fucking express real serious shit. But thank you, Jessica, for sharing that. You guys, step up. Tell me, why do you think this is okay? Do you think this is okay that there's a whole movement of doing that, of making the word demure something to reach for? Words are so fucking important. Stories, parables, philosophies, poetry, passion, all of that. The complete and utter gorgeousness of sexual connection between a divine feminine, masculine, being in sync with each other. And yet our root chakra are so fucked up, we don't even know what's up or down. We've got children with idiot parents giving people Christmas presents, children, a pew-pew, since we have to use that fucking word. I'm so annoyed when I have to use these words, and does what he does. And since, what was the one, the first one that came out, what was it, Columbine. So we've been dealing with this shit since Columbine. Wasn't Columbine in the 80s? I think it was in the 80s, if I'm correct. And we're still fucking standing here having the same conversation about this shit. Nothing's changing. Do you realize that nothing will change itself unless we change it? And do you understand that you have to change your frequency, your energy, your spiritual beliefs, your understanding of who you are as a spirit soul, so that this infrastructure can actually get to a place of massive healing to bridge into 5D? Do you realize that? It's not going to fucking do itself. It's just like, if you want to make yourself dinner, you better get off your ass and go make it and start peeling your potatoes and boiling some broccoli and making whatever you're going to be making. Because unless you get off your ass to do it, it's not making it itself. Nothing is going to happen until we get up and start doing something. And so one of the things you can do is energetically do a 180. Yourself. You know how there's this old saying, if you want to change your world, change yourself. Well, I'm not joking. And part of that is talking the truth. If you hear people using these stupid words in the public, not in social media, in public, correct them and say to them, we're adults, so we don't need to have them train us into monkeys out there in the world. Okay? Out here in the world, we say whatever the fuck we want, how we want. Okay? That's my suggestion to you, many of you. Because if we don't do something, we'll be, well, I won't be here, but in 20 years, you and many like you and your children will be sitting here having the same fucking ridiculous hamster wheel conversations Nothing will change, and we'll be still talking about 5D. I'm just gonna say. So we either want the 5D transformation to happen in this timeline, or I guess it will have to wait another generation. What are your thoughts on that, Andromeda?
I'd like to take it back to language. I hope many of you have read George Orwell's 1984. And yeah, and this is a dystopian society where language was restricted, right? So they took pride in the fact that their dictionary had contracted to only a few pages. So you didn't say something was very good, you said it was double plus good, okay, for example. And through controlling language, they controlled thought. And they controlled everything. When our ability to express ourselves is suppressed, our thoughts are controlled. Our throat chakra is damaged because we're not able to express with authenticity and truth. And we start to not be able to recognize the authenticity and truth of others. And we behave as automatons.
Well, I mean, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to jump in real quick. There's somebody who, again, I wish I could give him credit, who said that if we are not allowed to express ourselves in words, okay, in our language, our native, whatever native language that is, if we're not allowed to express ourselves in our truest authenticity, it turns within and it makes us sick. Now, there was a movie, and Andromeda, you and I talked about it. There was a movie where you couldn't feel. And there was AI that could pick up on your feelings. Now, I'm starting to believe this is not such a movie because I've actually said nothing out loud, thought something, and there it came on my phone telling me about this product. Maybe I was thinking about Knights Templars, and suddenly there comes a book on Knights. I mean, so like random, like I know for a fact I didn't mention it out loud, right? I didn't search that. It was a new thought, a new idea, a new desire, a new curiosity. And there it came on my phone within, like, I don't know, less than a half hour. But there was this movie. Do you remember this movie where I think it was made in the early 2000s, and it was all about if you felt sad, if you felt anything but neutrality, they would take you for reconditioning. I'm not joking. Do you remember that movie? I've got it. I gotta find it. RFK debating from telling the truth. Well, you got Kamala who won't debate anyone. I mean, you know, she's just so busy laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing and waving her hands like a fool. She looks like a puppet, actually. She acts like a puppet. She looks like a puppet. We're kind of fucked. You know, we're looking at situations that are really dire, and part of the reason we're going to go all the way back to the good old 70s, the late 70s, early 80s, and this is something that was a very big mistake in the American consciousness. The collective agreement was you don't talk about politics or religion at the dinner table. Well, guess what? We atrophied our muscles of discussing, because I'm going to tell you, the boomers were talking about this shit. They were talking about it in the 60s, in the 70s, and then we did a U-turn somewhere else. I don't know where the hell we ended up, but no one was talking about politics until 9/11 happened, and that's when the fucking dialogue started all over again. And right before that, we lost the election. Gore lost to Bush, and it was a wink, wink, very suspicious shit. I could go on and on about that one because I saw the election live in California. You guys were 3 hours ahead in the East Coast. And we saw who had won, and suddenly it was pulled. So my point to you, all of these little things, is that little by little by little by little by little, we have been fucked over and fucked over and fucked over. It's amazing to me. And finally here we stand, and now it's really it's scary, to be honest. And I've never, if you've ever heard me or heard my lives for a while now, I've always been super positive about a lot of things. But right now I'm seeing how we're being edited, how we're being twisted and told what we can say and harassed, which is that started in 2020, as we all know, right? We know why. Again, going back to language and George Carlin, Do you have any? What do you think if he was alive today? Do you think he'd survive this?
I don't. Well, I think he would be silenced.
Oh yeah.
He'd definitely be silenced. Because like being unapologetic is showing strength and integrity, and they can't have that because I'm bringing it back to chakras, right? It shows an open, functioning throat chakra, and that's really dangerous for them. People start expressing with integrity, start to use passionate language, abundant language, loving language. Using a vocabulary. When you allow people to use a vocabulary, guess what? They start thinking.
Yeah.
Right?
Because language elicits emotions. Language can actually evoke visions, right? You start seeing things, right? So certain language are going to give you a knee-jerk trigger reaction. That's the point of language. It's supposed to. It's the whole point. That's why when you say grape instead of the actual appropriate word, it loses its fucking meaning. So now we have little symbols of grapes to actually represent. Can you imagine a fucking bunch of grapes, an emoji of grapes now represents one of the most harmful things you can do to a woman or a man? That's where we're at now. Yeah. So that's when we're called a Karen. No, I disagree. I think Karens are bullies and they try to intimidate people. I wouldn't call yourself a Karen for saying the truth. I wouldn't know. We're not called Karens for telling the truth. We're not. We're called, the word is scary to some, so I won't say it. But there was a time when you could actually say whatever you wanted. In fact, they're old when talkies began. The talkies, the movies in the when did the talkies, I think it was the 1920s. Yeah, it started. And they could say whatever. They could say the word F-U-C-K. They could say whatever the fuck they wanted. They could talk about whatever they wanted. Mae West was absolutely vulgar, in today's standard, by the way. What Mae West was writing and saying on screen and in plays in Broadway, yeah, you couldn't see that today. There's no way. There's no way. We've gone backwards. We've lost our freedom to express ourselves in whichever way we can, as long as it's not harmful to other people. What does that mean? It means it's not racist language. It isn't going to shame people. It's just expressing ourselves without harming anyone, right? Using the appropriate word for the appropriate event or abuse that's happened to a human being. And I think that, again, they're constantly throwing divide and conquer shit. It's constant. It's the bear in the woods. It's we don't need men. It's the 4B movement. The 4B movement belongs to another country. Why take another country's massive problem of patriarchy and toxic masculinity into our country? I'm not saying we don't have toxic masculinity, don't get me wrong, but we also have feminine toxic issues as well. But what I'm saying to you is that we can talk about it here. We can actually resolve the problem here. We're lucky to live here. Whereas these poor women in that part of the world where 4B came out, they can't. So they've decided, well, fuck it. I'm not going to date men. I'm just going to stay to myself, and that's the end of it. I don't know why Emmett Till keeps coming up for me. Because of lies. Because that's a very, actually, believe it or not, that's a powerful analogy in a way, an example of how what we utter can destroy someone's life. Emmett Till, great example. How lies can destroy a young, he was 14. And we know what happened to him. I hope you guys know what happened to him. If you don't, you should find out, because that's your history. But it's because language. And unfortunately, in the Jim Crow era, language and, oh my God, some of the shit people did to desecrate the character of people of a different color. you know, board games and images and words, nasty, disgusting words and lies about people. It's we need to we're going to have to claim our integrity back through language, through action, through art, through poetry. I'm thinking Langston Hughes. I'm thinking a fucking all these men, all these African American men and women who fled America because they couldn't speak their truth. So now, guess what? None of us can speak our truth, obviously, right? It doesn't matter what color you are now. So we're all in the same bag now. So now we can unite, kumbaya, and we better stop this racial game, this I'm gay, you're straight bullshit, which toilet we'd like to go into. I don't give a fuck, you know, where you go, as long as you're not going to harm my child or grandchild, because if you're going to do that, fucking all bets are off. You're going to get it, you know. So my point is that we need to reclaim things that reclaim things that we're going to claim back from other incarnations, maybe in even other like maybe 3,000-4,000 years ago. We could speak our truth, live our truth in freedom, in joy, in abundance. And somehow, somewhere in the last, I can only see 2,000 years, there's been a gradual collapse. You know, what would you say? And I think we know why. Orthodox teachings, and his mother wanted the world to witness what they did. Exactly. And she was very courageous to do it. And that was her gift, unfortunately, she had to give this courageous, heartbreaking gift to the planet. And no one's been able to ever forget it, because if you see a picture of that young child, and he was a child, you can't unsee it once you see it. It's tragic. What were you going to say, Andromeda?
Really cannot unsee that. And that horrific tragedy. And yet this courageous woman took that tragedy to show the world. And these are the souls who have made a difference in the past through adversity. They've refused to be silenced. I know I keep on using this quote, but it's one of the most powerful things that anyone ever said. And it was Michael Collins, who was an Irish revolutionary in the early 20th century, during the Irish War of Independence. And just after he'd been released from prison for taking part in the 1916 uprising, he made a speech, a political speech. And he said, "We have a weapon more powerful than the whole arsenal of the British Army, and that weapon is our refusal."
Yeah.
And that is what we have to do. We refuse to be silenced. We refuse to be oppressed. We refuse their system of lack, of fear.
Yeah.
We refuse it, while recognizing that it's there and it needs to be exposed. But we refuse to define ourselves or to live our lives by it.
Well, that means you don't take on the language of the social media.
Exactly.
Take on the language of social media to continue your work, right? To continue speaking out, to do what you need to do, right? But then when you go back in the world, right, in the melee of the world, and you hear a relative, or even, I don't give a shit if it's your professor, your teacher, or doctor, and starts using his stupid lines, you better say something. I'm not kidding. You better fucking say something. Don't comply by letting them talk their way. Just say, look, I'm not 12. You don't have to talk to me like that. The word unalive, yeah, don't use that word in front of me. The actual word is what? Let them say it. Let them say it. Like, challenge them. We need to stop complying on shit like that. Because when I heard this woman say that, and just remember this was a nurse, this was a hospice nurse coming to my home for my twin, right? And she actually used that word, and I corrected her. And I said, you mean, and I used the correct word. And she goes, yes. I go, please don't fall into that trap. Don't comply, because when you comply, you lobotomize your soul. You lobotomize your brain. That's basically what you were saying, Andromeda. Jessica says, even the perception of harm varies widely from person to person now. Well, I don't know. The kid that just did what he did, I think we can all agree that was harm. I don't think there's a discussion here. I think what happened to that woman in India who no longer walks this planet, that was harm. I think we can agree on harm. We don't need to act like we're confused about the word harm. We know what harm is. Okay, catcalling a little girl by grown men, like, and when I mean little girl, a teenage girl, catcall is harmful to the girl. If she looks like she's embarrassed, it's harmful. If a person's face cringes when you say something, you've just harmed their feelings. It really isn't that difficult to figure out when you've harmed someone, when someone's being harmed. It's either overt, or I wouldn't even say covert, I'll say subtle. But even subtly, it's never so subtle, because you can see someone's face. We need to teach children micro expression and body language. And for Christ, I mean, I don't understand. Where are we at? Are we robots? Have we learned? Are we so in our games, in our video games, that we've forgotten how to read a human being? I'm going to tell you something as parents, okay? And my father did it to me, and I've done it to my son. Take your kids out to a cafe outside and ask your kids to read people. I'm not joking. Take them to a mall, a cafe, but you better start teaching your kids how to read people. Ask them, what do you think of this guy walking in? Show me a person that's got real money. Show me the guy that's full of shit that's acting like this. He has money. Show me who's loose and who's not. Show me who has integrity and who doesn't. And then ask them why they feel that, what they see in that person, how they dress, how they walk, the energy that they perceive. You as parents, that's your responsibility to do it. Teach your kids how to read. So when they grow up to be adults, they can read people and understand if they're doing any harm. If they're about to get harmed, they can read someone and know right off the bat that something's off, and teach them how to trust that, so they can actually remove themselves from a situation, for example. But that's your responsibility as parents. Physical.
And it's, there's a word for that. It's empathy, right?
Yeah.
And empathy isn't just about, empathy isn't just about sympathizing, right? Empathy is about reading, is about understanding, is about going into a situation or a communication with somebody and understanding the effect of your words, of your body language, of your energy. That is empathy, and it is severely lacking in this world. In a way, human beings have been turned into robots, discouraged from empathizing. Look at what's happening in the Middle East. Again, we can't even use the damn word, right? We have to say, Geno and watermelon, right? I mean, what sort of bullshit is that? But
let's look at this. She says, so Jessica says, physical harm, yes, but no, also emotional harm. I'm sorry, I don't know why that's difficult for people, but she says, and it's very interesting, Jessica, thanks for contributing to this chat. I listened to a talk recently about corporate woke training, where they oppose it as harmful to American values. Well, let me ask you a question. I'm going to be the devil's advocate. What is that corporate woke training? Okay, what is it? Because I have been completely pro gay marriages since I was, I don't know, forever, okay? In the 9th century, this is something they don't talk about. In the 9th century, the Catholic Church were marrying men, okay? And then they stopped for whatever reason. I'm not clear as to why on that one, by the way. But what is the woke training? Because I'm going to tell you something. There's woke and there's awakened. Those are two different things. When we have, what's her name? Jenner, who was in 2 hit-and-run accidents, okay, who gets Woman of the Year, but unalivens, I believe she unalivens someone, and gets Woman of the Year. That's woke. Awakened is compassion, empathy, and justice, and realizing the injustice of making of all the women on the planet that have done, like there's this Hindu woman, you know who she is. She's got a huge bindi, red bindi between, and she has done massive work on talking about seeds and growing food and conscious, being conscious and human and kind. Why didn't she get Woman of the Year? Okay, she didn't get Woman of the Year, but this chick that one was on a decathlon that was a man who now is a woman, God bless her, good, but then harms other people and gets Woman of the Year. Okay, and that is part of the woke culture. And so I'm very careful with words. So I put distance between woke and awakened. Those are two different things. I think that men and women should do what they want as long as they don't harm children, as long as they don't harm any human being. And who are we to judge them if they want to be a woman? It's all good. If we should have, actually, instead of having male bathrooms and female bathrooms, because this is we should have family bathrooms. Why? Because there are people that have kids. There are women that have a boy, a little 7-year-old, and they have a 14-year-old girl, and they should all be able to go into one bathroom, and it's a stall. The door closes. Starbucks has them. Other places have them. Why do we still have these stupid ass men and women bathrooms? That shouldn't even be. We should have. Don't you agree? We should have bathrooms where anyone can go in, and then you lock the fucking door. But it's by design. It's not that complex to change over bathrooms so that they're more flexible and fluid. They're more fluid for anyone that needs to use the damn toilet. Why does it have to be a political issue? Just fucking change the damn bathrooms to become that. Do you guys disagree with that?
No, I don't disagree with it at all. And it also feeds into the shaming of the human body. That that the human body is something to be hidden, something to be ashamed of. And anything which legislates how we should dress. The fact that you can't, and a lot of people get embarrassed by this, but we all live in societies where what we wear is legislated, right? You cannot walk down a street naked. Because you'd be done for indecent exposure, right? And yet it's just the human body, which is, a beautiful, wondrous thing. And it also feeds into this idea that men are somehow naturally predatory.
Yeah, it does.
Which also affects the masculine psyche.
Yes.
And feeds into ideas about toxic masculinity or women being afraid of men, the bear in the woods, the bear, the man in the woods. Yeah. That whole harmful, divisive narrative. And I agree with you. Like as long as nobody's harming anybody, who gives a shit?
Exactly. I'm going to tell you something. I was 20. I think I was 23. When AIDS was in full blast. Okay, full blast. Okay, this is when you heard about Rock Hudson. Many of you weren't even born. So this is one of the benefits of an elder. So I'll tell you. So Rock Hudson was coming out gay. He died of AIDS. He was one of the first people, actually, that I ever recalled who passed away from it. Okay, God bless him. He was a good person. And so Liz Taylor and Princess Diane were revered and remembered for them being incredibly compassionate. The third person that was incredible was creating the Hay Ride. It was called the Hay Ride. And this is Louise Hay. Louise Hay, who wrote the book, You Can Heal Your Life, the Hay Publishing House. Many of the books you've bought in the spiritual community are from her publishing house. She actually was the great movement of the self-help movement. And she started that in the I would say in the 70s. Anyway, long story short. So here she is, talking to these men because no one else will talk to them, these gay men. None of them, and I knew this for a fact because my husband's aunt worked at the VA hospital, okay? And a lot of these beautiful young men were passing away from AIDS. No one knew what the fuck to do, okay? Now, one of the things she kept coming home to tell me is that these men had lived with their beloved, okay? for 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, whatever, right? And suddenly here came families from Texas, or families from Idaho, or families from New York, or wherever the hell they came, and basically stopped their lover from being able to say goodbye to them as they dropped their body. The person who had lived and loved their beloved, for years as a partner, a viable partner in San Francisco, because that's where I lived, was not allowed. Okay, so these beautiful men who were afraid of what was going to come because they were dropping their bodies, since we can't use the word DEATH, we can't use shit anymore. They were so, imagine, okay, again, it's the 80s. And they've been raised with a toxic foundation that they have sinned, and they've thought this all their life. It's in the background of their mind, so they're afraid that they're going to hell. And in other words, my aunt, thank God, well, I mean, it was my husband's aunt, was spiritual, and she was there to hold their hand and to let them know they had done nothing wrong, that everything was okay. And if she could, she would sneak some of these men to say goodbye, but for the most part that wasn't happening. So if this person who was passing wanted to have to be cremated, and the parents wanted them buried, well, it didn't care. So I knew of 48 men that passed away in 3 years. Okay, 48. And I'm going to tell you something. After seeing that, I feel that it's fucked that people have to marry each other to have basic rights. I think if you declare on a piece of paper that this is your beloved, that should be a fucking enough. I'm sorry. But it was very important for gay rights to have the movement it launched into. If you've never watched the movie Torch Song Trilogy, that's your homework. I want you to watch it this weekend. It's called Torch Song Trilogy with Matthew Broderick. So it's not woke, it's awakened. Okay, I've been gay in past lives. I've loved men, I've loved women. In other words, right? But this woke, there's some toxic shit in that, because they're manipulating again with the divide and conquer bullshit. They're pushing buttons and they're pulling things out of their ass that is actually has no integrity, no value, and is making a lot of people uncomfortable. Now, in terms of people who are against gay rights, fuck them. On just period, fuck them. I don't give a fuck what they think. I don't care about American values. There's no such thing as American values. Let's just stop the bullshit. When you put Japanese people in internment camps, when you have enslaved people and you're selling their children, when you're putting Native Americans into concentration camps, let's just call it that for what it is, and when you're taking away their children, telling them not to speak their language or else you'll beat them. I'm sorry, if that's American values and you think we should maintain that shit, good luck. Because this is why we're in this mess. Karma is a bitch, and it never misses its mark. And so now we have to right the wrongs as a people, as Americans. We have to right the wrongs. Do you get me? We're at this place where there's karma to be paid. And if we're just honest about what was done in this land of ours, okay, then it will become great. Until we do some repairs and some honest excavation of ourselves, of how we benefited from these horrific suppressions of many types of people, we're never gonna be great. So when people say American values, my son used to get thrown out of his class all the time because they would pull a rhetoric like that out of their ass when he was like 13, 14, and he would just fucking let him have it, and he'd be in the principal's office. That's why we had to keep homeschooling him, because it wasn't going to work. So when a 13-year-old kid can see the bullshit, wow, that's all I'm saying. What do you think?
Yeah, this idea about, American values, or on this side of the Atlantic, British values. And of course, I speak as an Irish person. So, British values has a whole different meaning for me. But it's just it's just purely veiled white supremacy. And we need to be very careful about, talking about values. What are our values, right? What are your values? What are the values of the people you surround yourself with? Fuck the flag it's attached to.
Yeah, exactly.
right? And ultimately, as human beings, we should all share the same values. We don't, sadly, and that's why the world is in such a mess. But we should. We should share those values of love and truth and community and peace and abundance. They're values worth holding on to. Not being able to recite the Constitution or being able to sing the national anthem word perfect. That's not values, that's bullshit.
Exactly. That's toxic as hell. And I think if you've never, see, the problem is the conversations we have as a people all over the world is mundane shit. How's the weather? How's Jack? How's the bathroom interior decorating? Oh my God, did you see that dress? It's on sale. Oh my God, yeah, I'm going to go golfing. We're having the stupidest fucking conversations. Instead of, I heard you lived in San Francisco. When were you there? Oh, in the 80s. Oh, did you see the quilt, the AIDS quilt? Did you see? Yeah, that's a conversation, because that would evolve into what I just shared with you guys, where one of you said that's very sad, right? If a person said to you, I was in the Congo. Oh, I was in, well, I mean, look at Anthony Bourdain when he went to the watermelon country, since we got to use fucking code words for this shit or else we're, anyway, so here he goes, right? He gets a special license privilege, whatever the fuck it is, and he ends up in the watermelon land. And I think he's there maybe because he's shooting a show, right? And you should look it up, the show. And I think he's there maybe at most 2 weeks, at most. And he sees what all these other MFers must have seen. You can't, in other words, even not getting the license, just looking at what people have to go through to go from one place to another, just that, right? He talked about it. He talked about it. And in some levels, it was ignored, but he did talk about it. And he was very diplomatic because, that was his way. And I mean, also, his paycheck was attached to other people who could actually, stop the paycheck. So there's that. However, he was irreverent. He did see things for what they were. He didn't pull any bullshit. And this was in the 90s. And he saw it. So I don't really understand how people can't see obvious brutality and injustice. And I'm going to be blunt. There are a lot of people here that, well, I wasn't me. I wasn't born when it happened. Well, I wasn't born when it happened either. Okay, I wasn't born when a lot of things happened. I wasn't born when Germany happened. I wasn't born in World War I, World War II. I wasn't born in the Depression. I wasn't born during slavery. I wasn't born during what happened to the Native Americans. I wasn't born during the wars in China. I wasn't born there, but I'm aware of it. And I feel that we have to, as a duty to us being incarnated now, this time, it is our duty to right the wrongs of our ancestors we no longer embody. Ancestors we used to be, we're no longer, right? I don't care if I was Chinese. I don't care if I was African. I don't care. I don't care if I was Irish or British or Norwegian. I don't care what I was in past lives, what I am now. What I care about is we have to right the wrongs. And the way you can do it is to call people out. You can be very diplomatic about it, but you can gently redirect them to honestly looking at things from a different vantage point, from a place of compassion. Compassion, I really don't like that word, because compassion is, oh, I feel sorry for you, glad it's not me. Empathy is, I'm walking beside you, I feel your pain. So from a place of maybe compassion and eventually going them into empathy, meaning empathy is when you see your kid watching the news and sobbing. That's empathy. Compassion is watching your kid go, yeah, that's really sad. Glad I wasn't in that school. That's compassion. Those are different, consciousness, but at least it's a beginning to get them, because right now we're seeing absolutely zero compassion. When Kamala was asked about the watermelon situation, she doesn't give one fuck. Not one fuck. Well, then again, she's on the payroll, so but there's something wrong with that woman. And I'm seeing women voting for her because she's a woman, and young people are interviewing these women. I'm ashamed to say my generation, because she's a contemporary, right? And they're asking, why would you vote for her? And crickets, they have no, well, because we need a woman. Okay. And we had a woman, Margaret Thatcher. She was crazy. We had Hillary Clinton. Turns out she was crazier. We've had women leaders, and some of them, we need compassionate women. So I'm certainly not saying Trump is better, but I'm saying at least we got Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard. And Tulsi Gabbard, look her up, ripped Kamala a new one many, many times. And so there are certain people that really have massive integrity, who really are here to serve this country. They really want to serve this country, and we should let them. The fact that it's attached to, who this other, I don't know, I really don't want to offend you, but I want us to be honest about the fact that we have been given leaders that really didn't give one fuck about us. It's quite obvious. I hope you guys know that, right? And we finally have some people that may actually be able to move the dial a little way towards us. Maybe, I don't know, making lobbyists illegal. That would be a good start. What are your thoughts?
I think making lobbyists illegal would be a good start. But, I think that I suppose, and I don't want anybody to be afraid, right? But the political institutions are set up to oppress and control us. The political institutions which we have on Earth are not from, high dimensional, loving starseeds. They're part of the reptilian agenda. All about control, all about keeping resources back so that we feel in lack, or we feel an inability to manifest abundance.
Yeah.
Right? So that we live in urban areas where we have little contact with nature and Pachamama.
Yeah.
So that we're working jobs that don't allow us to express ourselves or to have time for spiritual growth and learning. Absolutely. It's the purpose, the entire purpose of these constructs. And in recognizing that, you can very clearly see why Kennedy was never going to be allowed to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
My love, you need to go to bed.
Yeah, I know, you're right. War says, God is a title, it's not a name or a being. Well, if you want to have a conversation with God about being impersonal, an impersonal connection with God, just don't forget the word God we're using, just like I have a name, you have a name, right? Your name is that, my name is this. So for the purpose of conversation, or else we'd be grunting and barking, okay, we're going to use words. So the word God is an energetic frequency that created you, okay, as a spirit soul. That means if it created you, it can do whatever the fuck it wants. So if it wants to embody in a human form, it can. Does it? I don't know. Maybe. I know there's some people that believe that Krishna was here to enjoy some earthly pastimes when it was in a 6D vibration, when this planet was in the high vibration state. To think that the one who created us all, the one of 1,000 names, the one who created us all, that's exactly why I say that. The one of 1,000 names, the one who created us all, cannot take an incarnation in however they want, is arrogant of us. And it limits us, and it shows that we have like these blinders. You know what I mean? And so at the end of the day, unfortunately, because we're not telepathic, we're going to have to use words. And some words are clunky. I mean, there's no doubt that they're clunky. Hang on for a quick second. I work night shifts, so I'm happy you're up. Well, I'm up because Andromeda is up, and once I get past a certain time, I'm fucked. Just like Abby mentioned, it's title, not a person or being. Yes, well, I kind of addressed that. So I hope we got that kind of straightened out on the God name, because what else are we going to use right now, or else we want. So the one of 1,000, use whatever the hell you want, but as long as people know what the hell we're talking about. Laura, angels made creations under Yahweh, he directed it. Lord God made mankind. Okay, well, I don't see us disagreeing. But Laura, angels made creation. Well, I'm going to tell you what I saw when I did psilocybin. And what I saw is massive archangels, Titanic. We're talking about taller than any building, taller than the tallest building on the planet. Let's put it that way. And where their face would be, I saw sacred geometry, right? But I did see the silhouette of, probably to make me comfortable, to be honest, was the silhouette of a face, right? But in the face where there would be eyes, nose, ears, so whatever, not ears, obviously, but the mouth, the nose, and so forth. I saw sacred patterns of geometry, and in their chest, I saw us being pushed through them and being born almost like honey, like bees coming out of a hive, if you will, like being created and being, so the creator created us, and we sifted through archangels, and here we are. And then of course there came the Anunnakis, who, and this is known, man. I mean, listen to Billy Carson, but I think watch the show Buzzsaw with I forgot his first name, Sean Stone, and he's interviewing Billy Carson on Gaia.com. And these guys are researching so much shit. Regina Meredith has been she went to the Ninth Mystery School, I believe. I think it's called Ninth Mystery School, and studied a lot of esoteric secret teachings. And there's another scientist, she's got a PhD in science and engineering, and she talks about esoteric spiritual matters. So when Andromeda was talking about the incredible resources with Gaia.com, she's not kidding. Okay, so you may want to just go there, and all you're going to get is confirmation of what you know. You're going to get confirmations. So any other questions or comments?
Yeah, so War 731, Anunnaki, Emim, Rephaim, they're all just different classes of angels. Actually, they're not. War 731. So again, listen to Billy Carson. The Anunnaki were not angels. This idea that we are, so he's saying that we were called worms, we were called cattle. There's a reason for that, and that was to keep us enslaved.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is what the Anunnaki did. The God of the Old Testament is very likely to be Enlil, who was an Anunnaki, who visited the plagues on Earth.
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah.
So be careful. They're not different classes of angel. I think what you were talking about earlier was the Elohim, who I wouldn't really call lower angels, because I'm not sure that apart from the archangels, right, I'm not sure that we have enough real understanding of angelic realms to call some angels lower and some angels higher. Okay, unless of course you are talking about the archangels, but it is of course, and it's been studied, it's been documented. Well, everything's created. Okay, everything's created from source energy. So nobody's disputing that the Elohim were created. But I think you have to, if you really want to understand ancient texts, and you really want to.
Okay, can I
Yeah.
first of all, I know for a fact, because that's where my twin and I fell. I wouldn't call us angels, but we were angelic humanoids, and we were on a very high dimension. I'd say from 7th to 9th dimension, and we were tricked by the God, and it came clear, God of the Old Testament. There was a trick, and I don't want to talk about it publicly because it's fucking massively woohoo. But there was a betrayal, a massive betrayal from the God of the Old Testament, and it was interesting because now we're all agreeing who it was. It fascinates me because we've all gone our own little corners of meditations. Billy Carson's doing research. He's putting all the pieces together. And some of us are just, it's hitting us. Enlil, that was the God. Okay, got it. That was the MFer that did this to us and who started this whole domino effect of our fall. And interesting enough, the fall for many of you didn't start even then. Okay, it didn't even start in Atlantis. It didn't. Some of you it did. Some of us fell way before there was the people of Mu, or they call it the children of Mu, the Lemurians. Many of us fell way before all that, sadly, and some fell in the last like 3,000 to 6,000 years. Believe it or not. And the reason why I know this as a confirmation, this is important, where you fell, how you fell, why did you fall? This is important shit, because that will bring you back to recapitulate so you can heal that and move forward into the ascension and move back up the staircase. And once you go up that staircase, you'll never go back, trust me. But the reason I really understand this idea of why we need to understand why we fell is because most of it, okay, there was some fuckery here and there with certain clients that have done hypnotherapy or Akashic readings, but many with just regret, self-loathing, or fear, or all of the above. And that has spiraled people out. Now, I keep bringing that up, but many of you are new here, so I'm going to tell you this story. So Dr. Joe Dispenza, I hope you know this. You can look it up on YouTube. Don't take my word for it. Put Dr. Joe Dispenza working with giants, Lilu Mas, Liloumace. Watch it. Okay, you got it, right? All right. So there's one at a certain point of the interview, Lilu Mas, Lilou, talks about him working with giants, and he actually comes clean. He says, yeah, they're Titanic-like beings. They help with my healing room. They have a particular healing room on their 6-7 day retreat, and they're real. You watch the video. And so one day, and I'm sorry, Andromeda, I'm repeating myself, but they need to hear this. One day, he walks into the room and telepathically they're communicating with him saying, the energy of the room, the frequency of the room is really, really low. And is there any way you can raise the frequency, because we love ourselves too much to lower ourselves anymore? Because if we lower our frequency to match what's going on here in this room, we will lose our consciousness. Did you get that? We will lose our consciousness, and we love ourselves too much. So can you raise the frequency of the room? Watch that interview from the beginning to the end, because at the end, there are 2 testimonials of women who were healed by these Titanic giants. Okay? These light beings. And so many light beings know that if we take on these bodies, there's a damn near certainty that you will it's like a spiritual lobotomy. Okay? That you're going to fucking forget everything. Absolutely everything. And that's why I started the live by saying the fact that you guys are waking up in these dense bodies is a fucking miracle. Because these souls who come from a higher dimension of consciousness they won't incarnate, they won't even take the chance. Do you get that? So when we look at what made us fall and how some of us were tricked, some of us, we fucked up. Let's just be honest. We fucked up, or we thought, I'm just going to take a ride in a human body and check it out for a while. We fucked up on many, many levels. And now we just need to trust that we're moving out of this ignorance, this state of ignorance and apathy. Apathy is huge. And we're going to move into creating heaven on earth in our own little corner, which is our heart chakra. And from there, that will expand like a mushroom cloud across the planet. Some people will gravitate to this energy of love, and some will be repelled by it and will stay in 3D. Your thoughts on that, my love?
So many thoughts. The idea of our fall is one of the most important things that we can come to terms with, that it doesn't matter which dimension we came from, that our fall happened, whether it was this on this planet or on other planets, whether it was through fear, or manipulation, or by design. At one point, all of us fell in consciousness, and it's much more likely to happen here, right, in third density, than it is anywhere else. But being able to ascend through that, and you're right, kind of like almost repelling 3D consciousness through ascension, through opening your heart chakra, developing heart coherence, strengthening your energy body. All of this is, it's how we get there. And I think I just wanted to slightly segue into the idea of spiritual discipline.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people who love to present themselves as spiritual, as spiritually awake, spiritually aware, but yet they're not doing the work.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And eventually what they're saying just becomes fucking toxic.
Yeah.
Because they're not saying it from a place of heart coherence. They're very often saying it from a place of ego.
Yeah.
Some of them don't even recognize that they have an ego. And trying to tell these people that they're getting corrupted downloads because they're hearing it, because basically their higher self cannot break through their ego because they have pampered and indulged their ego. Right? The spiritual narcissists.
Well, it's
there.
This 5 reasons why you're the chosen one.
Oh God, it actually gives me nausea.
Yeah, me too. And let's clarify. You weren't chosen. You volunteered. That's even better. I don't understand why the spiritual community won't say we volunteered and we step forward where everyone else saying, yeah, fuck that. I'll see you around the flip side of the moon. And that's what happened. 5 reasons why you're a chosen one and you're a royal blood. You're a spirit. How do you hold royal blood in the container of what is it? Electricity of what the soul is. It's electric. It's got sparks and light. There's no blood in it. There's nothing royal about it. It's such bullshit. It's amazing to me. And they get away with it. They get, they've got 600,000 people following them because they're licking their boots. That's what's happening. And anyway, go on. You were saying.
I was going to say, like, what you're doing, if you buy into this royal blah blah blah, who gives a shit, right? We're all fractals of source, therefore we're all equal at source. This idea of royalty, of hierarchy, of us and them, it's all separation, it's all reptilian, it's all bullshit. We need to stop with this. Chosen one, my arse, sorry, but like, if you're here, I'm sorry, but if you're sent to this planet, you're not chosen, right? You've either got karma to work through because you messed up in prior incarnations, or you volunteered to come here to get this planet out of the mess it's in. There is nothing chosen about being on this planet. It's hard.
It's very hard.
Let's stop with spiritual arrogance and spiritual narcissism. Right? Let's go ahead with gaining knowledge and sharing that knowledge and sharing our passion for this planet to do better, to be better, for life to be better, for every single being, plant, animal, human on this planet. End of. Let go of the spiritual narcissism. Just because you're a twin, it doesn't mean you're a chosen one. My God, who would actually, which human would actually choose this journey? Hands up, seriously. Which twin has never once wished, I wish I wasn't on this journey? Every single one of them, if they're really on the journey. And the rest of you are just full of shit. Sorry, it actually completely, it grinds my gears. Spiritual narcissism
It's a big, well, that's why we're putting distance between the word new age and because it's a toxic word. It's become toxic in many aspects, sadly. And the people who first, and I'm repeating myself for many of you who are new here, is that new age is a term that was coined by Aleister Crowley, who was a pedo, and Blavatsky, who, again, toxic people who were occultists. They were into the occults. It's not the same. It's not the same as well. So what we're our journey, individually and collectively, I hope, in 5D, the new earth, is a spiritual journey. It's all of us coming back from the memories, the traumatic memories of Atlantis, of Lemuria, of planets that we can't remember, of lands and continents on this planet we don't remember, of religions, of belief systems we don't remember. I mean, come on, guys. We're celebrating the oldest religion is Vedic. It's Hinduism, by the way, on the side note. I hope you guys know that, right? And then there's Taoism, right, in China. Okay. And then there's Buddha, right? Then there's okay, and then there's Christianity with Christ, and then there's the Muslim religion. Okay, we kind of get the, and then yeah, okay, well, look, Judaist, Christian, back there, 2000, whatever, 2,500 years ago. But the point is, what I'm trying to say is, there are religions that precede all these religions. Okay, we'll go back 7, 10, 20,000 years that we don't fucking remember. We don't even remember some of the things the Druids, am I correct? There are certain things we don't remember of what the Druids and the high priestess were doing and worshiping. You know, it's not just Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, and Roman mythology, which copied the Greeks. They copied everything from the Greeks. That's known. And the Greeks copied everything from the Egyptians. That's also known. There's no one's arguing that point. Everyone knows this. Okay. Anyone that has a half a brain knows that. That's read a book. So my point, but there are religions we don't remember. There are belief systems, rituals, ceremonies we don't remember. Right? And so we've got to just go back to source. Just keep throwing all the shit away, all these things away, and for a minute, because some people like to have the crucifix. Some people like to have Mary Magdalene or Mother Mary on the altar. I like having Krishna. I like having Buddha on my altar. I like having Yeshua on my walls. Listen, I'm not judging him, but I'm saying for a minute, let's throw it all away. And let's go to the source, to the light, to the very, very beginnings of our making. And that's where our power lies. And then we can unfurl all this beautiful nectar within ourselves, so we can incorporate massive self-love, massive self-acceptance, radical transformation for quick evolution, so that we're not sitting here still talking the same shit when we incarnate again. God forbid, many of you don't want to incarnate here again under this kind of infrastructure system, under like these kinds of elections, these kinds of politicians who really don't give a fuck about us. And if you've ever watched the movie Gladiator, who never did, you can watch any movie on ancient Rome, and what's the contempt that always comes in to these movies about ancient Rome and the plebs, the populace, they were called the plebs. The contempt is unbelievable by the 1%. Nothing's changed. So most of you wouldn't want to come back here anyway. So we better do something radical. What's radical? Well, we actually believe in meditation. If Dr. Emoto can teach us and show us scientifically that water is impacted by our thoughts, then that means our thoughts can impact the planet. Does that make sense? I don't know why this is hard for people to wrap their head around. It's kind of weird to me. What are your thoughts?
People have been told that they don't have power. People have been told to only believe what they can see with their earthly eyes and touch. And so when they're told that every thought they have, every word they speak, every action is an energy that has a wider effect, the ripple effect, the butterfly wings. Okay? Like, do you remember a few years ago when they were talking about chaos theory? All right, that a butterfly beating its wings on one side of the planet could result in storm, a hurricane. on the other side of the planet. That is the power of your energy. And you better make sure that you are disciplining your ego.
Yes, you have.
And what do I mean by that? I mean disciplining your ego so that it doesn't rule you.
Yeah.
Making sure that you are being excellent to those around you. Because that's the behavior of your higher self. Your ego is the one that is cruel to others around you.
Yeah.
Right? So you better make sure that the energy you are converting, because energy cannot be created or destroyed, but the energy comes from somewhere. All right. So the energy you're converting into thought, into words, into actions, into being, that creation has an effect on the wider collective. And if you don't want to generate more karma for yourself, and you don't want to have to come back here to correct those wrongs, then you need to make the change immediately.
Yeah.
And it's a choice, right? It's a very simple choice. Do I choose to start recognizing where my ego is causing me to maintain destructive, toxic habits? Or where my ego is creating my inability to manifest abundance? Or where my ego is rejecting the blessings that have been sent to me? Because if you screw up, you're going to have to come back. And we all screw up, right? But don't make it habitual. If you want to start ascending to the point that you can then choose whether or not to reincarnate into a 3D or a 5D earth, so that you can be with your beloved in the higher dimensions. If you want to get to that point, you better start doing the work today.
Yeah.
No more of this fluff, no more of this spiritual narcissism, spiritual arrogance, or the comforting stories that you tell yourself that you're a chosen one. Get fucking real, and get real now.
I agree, 100%. It's important.
It is important.
Especially if you say, I don't want to come back here. And we have to go back to, and I sometimes I repeat myself because it's important. So, because I used to say that, I don't want to come back here. And I realized it wasn't the planet that was a problem. It was the infrastructure and the leaders. It's leaders. The leaders are toxic. It's for the most part, they've always been toxic, for the most part. The fact that we've had this many wars, I'm sorry, but we hire these MFers to be diplomats and they start wars. I think most of us could agree that many of us would do a better job, I'm not kidding, with an 8th grade education. I'm not joking. Because at the end of the day, we're watching Trump, who's stopped certain skirmishes. It's not that I respect him. It's not that at all, because he's got some massive patriarchal toxicity, okay? I wish we could have gotten Kennedy. I'm being honest with you guys. But what I will say, okay, or Tulsi Gabbard, what I will say is that he knows how to talk with pictures. He knows how to stop conflict in a very decisive manner. Because his thing is, because his whole premise is, I don't want to deal with this shit, because that's more of a headache. Now, most of you might say, well, it'll make more money, right? Because of the war machine. But at the end of the day, is it really worth the squeeze? And he is a businessman. And that is a problem, because the bottom line is, for any businessman who's been who turned $40 million, which is what he inherited, to the billions he has, is that he is here for himself and his family. Now, does he want to make the country safe for his progeny? Probably. I'm going to assume that yes. But I don't think he's including anyone in that plan. That's not everyone. Does that make sense? And I don't want to infer anything else but that. What I will say is that at this point, what we have to look at in terms of the courage and the discipline that Andromeda talks about, discipline, the discipline isn't so hard, because to go back to your old habits of shopping, drinking, taking illicit shit or legal shit, to soften the edges of the quiet despair you feel in yourself because you don't feel like you can make any changes, is a defeatist, lack energy. And if you're having financial issues or lack of abundance or lack of magic from the universe to take care of your needs, your daily needs and so forth, then I would say to you, well, we're all going through some shit, don't get me wrong, but what I will say is that if you were more aligned with your self-worth to think that what you say counts. See, it's not the ocean that becomes the ocean. It takes one drop at a time to become the ocean. And each of us are one drop that can turn a drop, two drops, a bucket into a wide ocean. And believe it or not, the 1% is massively aware and afraid of it. That's why you have Zuckerberg building $100 million bunker in Hawaii, because if he didn't think we were, there was, like he wasn't complete. I mean, if he didn't think he needed it, I don't think he'd build it. Why would he build something like that? Well, you might say, well, it's because bad things are going to happen on the planet. No, it's because people are fucking tired. They're tired. And I'm hoping that rather than using the old tried and failed methods that were used in the French Revolution and used in other situations, that we're going to actually trust energy, ours, individually, collectively. I remember when Australia had a massive fire where it was destroying all of its fauna, flora. I don't know if you guys remember that. But again, I'm repeating myself. And somebody, I wish I could get credit, sent a massive worldwide email to spiritualists all over the world and asked and gave all the times. In Sydney, it's going to be 9 o'clock. In New York, it's going to be 3 o'clock. In Paris, it's going to be 12 o'clock, whatever. So they gave timelines of when to meditate, to visualize the rain. And all they requested was 10 minutes. And we all did it. Many of us did it. And boom, the following day, it rained. It rained. Now, this is ironic because you see, we know about cloud seeding. We know all about that shit because I grew up in Switzerland where I used to see it all the time happening. So it still is a question mark in my head as to why they couldn't do that in Australia. But anyway, that's another show for another, show. But what I will say is that it rained. And it rained, I think it was less than 24 hours. It began pouring. And the fires were stopped. We tell ourselves every day matters. Yeah. Did you want to add to that? Because to me, that was a miracle.
And it shows the power of intention, and actually our power. And because, energy is not, it's not something tangible. So let's face it, right? Yeah, the fact that there were so many there probably helped. But there's absolutely no reason as any of us as infinite spiritual beings couldn't do that by ourselves.
Yeah.
The problem is that we are hamstrung by ego and by fear and by doubt.
Like John.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, again, the gift that this woman who died, who passed away at her table at that bank, I won't mention the name, I mentioned in the last slide, but I won't do it again. The bank. The fact that she sat, first of all, heads are going to roll because, where was HR? Because I was telling Andromeda that in America, you guys know this, if you don't take your break, they'll come and find you at your desk to write your ass up. You know that, right? Anybody disagree with that? You know that's what happened. So multiple people failed this woman. My son looked her up, and it turns out she had no family, no parents, no one to call for her. That's why no one called until they found her, because she had no family. So if we know that someone is alone and lives alone and has no one around, I invite you to reach out to this person, determine if their personality, I mean, because sometimes people are alone because they're assholes, no offense, but sometimes people are alone because they're just shy. They're just shy. And they're having their own trauma they've never dealt with. And they don't feel worthy and they don't feel important and think they're in the way. You know, reach out to those people, find out who they are, find out if they're good, if they're kind people, and then bring them under your wing, care for them, love them, be a good neighbor, you know, honestly. I think that's important, but that showed me the horror of the beginnings of us disconnecting as a community to each other, right? She should have had neighbors who gave a fuck about her. Somebody should have paid it, right? A colleague in another cubicle, a boss, an assistant boss. Fuck, HR. Why haven't you taken your lunch break? You clocked in 2 days ago. It says a lot. It says a lot about where we've collapsed in our country, in our inability to give one fuck about anyone. I was talking to someone about, because I hadn't worked, you know, my twin was passing away. I was taking care of him. My beautiful man needed my help. He needed my care, and I just couldn't do work. I'm sorry. So, but I remember I was looking for grants and this and that and the other, and she was, and I'll never forget this. This is somebody with a PhD in psychology who's saying, well, you know, just take care of yourself, forget about no. And I said, no, you don't understand. If this is happening to me, I'm trying to figure out like how many thousands of people this is happening to, where there's no support, none. And she was like, no, just, you know, just take care of yourself. Just, you know, you just got to discipline yourself to just take care of yourself and handle what you need. Forget other people. They'll take care of themselves too. And it was like a tennis match. One consciousness was empathetic, mine, and hers was the consciousness of dog eat dog. There's not enough. And it's not, I'm not putting myself on a pedestal. I'm just thinking that most of us in the spiritual community think like this. This is how we think. If I'm suffering, how many others are suffering the same problem? I'll give you a great example of what many people are suffering. Paycheck to paycheck living is something many people suffer all over the world. Groceries outside the price that's making people go crazy. Some people literally not eating for 5 days because they had to pay the rent or the cell phone or whatever. And they're not fasting for health. They're fasting, and the cortisol is running, you know, through their body because they're fasting, meaning they're hungry, they're salivating, but there's no food and there's no money to buy food. That's happening a lot. There are people living in their vans, in their cars. That's happening a lot. So this concept of dog eat dog, the fit, you know, the Darwinism theory, again, another fuckery, because here we are sitting together, kumbaya, realizing that Darwin was full of shit and lied to us about the monkey theory, okay? Meaning we didn't come from those beautiful animals. We came from the Anunnakis. So, you know, but what came out of Darwinism is, you know, what was it again? The fittest shall survive, right? And that, again, 19th century propaganda of having absolutely no care, no compassion for your fellow human brother or sister, okay? Again, by design, right? Because just so you remember, the text that, the Sumerian texts that talk about the Anunnaki, Enlil, Thoth, and Enki and other names that I can't remember, that Zachariah Stitchin translated, those tablets didn't just appear in the 1950s. They were around in the 19th century, 18th century, 17th century, but let's say they found them in the 19th century. Where the fuck were they? Why weren't they translated? Why? Because it would have changed. Darwin, I'm pretty sure, and this is my theory, that it was suppressed. Because Darwinism was much more on point to what they wanted to control. Because the idea of dog eat dog, the fit shall survive and the weak perish, was a perfect a recipe during what was it called? The what is the age column? It's really late. I'm tired. Try the industrial age. And as you know, the industrial age, people were working 7 days a week, 12, 13, 14-hour days. Children were working, losing their arms, their fingers, all their digits, right? What do you think of that? What are your thoughts on that? And how Darwinism was used to more or less use rhetoric, propaganda to support the industrial era. What do you think of that?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it was actually Darwin's brother, I believe, who created eugenics out of Darwinism. So Darwin talked about survival of the fittest in terms of like survival of certain characteristics, right, of a species. Hence, it ends that the way a species would naturally evolve, adapt to environments, okay, where certain characteristics would confer a survival advantage. That's what he meant by survival of the fittest, but it was taken by his brother and it was turned into something else. Dog eat dog, survival of the fittest, the worthy and the unworthy. And it's on a whole basis of capitalist thought, right? Apart from what was said. Well, I mean, capitalist thought kind of started in the 18th century, didn't it? And before that, it was feudalism. But the early capitalists, who were called liberals, economic liberals. So let's again use the proper language. The economic liberals believed in the trickle-down effect, right, or the bootstrap effect, which I believe it's called on the other side of the Atlantic, where the system will pull people up. Well, we know that's horseshit, right? We know that doesn't happen. We know that actually what happens, particularly in late-stage capitalism, is that there's hoarding at the top and it has no economic benefit to the rest of us, right? So the idea of creating a system which was entirely based on exploitation of the worker, which is what happened in the Industrial Revolution, where child labour became the norm. There'd always been child labour, right? But it became the norm. It became the way people had to survive, particularly in the growing cities where people couldn't grow their own food, right, and live off the land, where peasantry changed. So people had to work in these factories, including the children. You know, we've all seen the child who was put up the chimney to clean it.
Yeah.
They were small enough, right? Or the children who were working in factories, right? And this mechanization of human labor for profit is really what started happening in the Industrial Revolution. Before, profit was all about conquest, right? Land ownership, winning wars, right? Taking wealth from people, charging rent. It was all land-based. But the Industrial Revolution changed that en masse to become commodity-based.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, to be honest, this concept of using child labor was all over the world. Okay, that it wasn't a specific thing to England. It was, in fact, Charles Dickens. The whole what happened is when he was like, I think he was 13 or he was a young teenager, and his father got really sick, and he had to work in the workhouse, which was industrial, in factories. And thank God it only lasted a year. But here he came out of these experiences writing Oliver Twist and Christmas Carol and massive empathy. just massive empathy at seeing it. I mean, Victor Hugo wrote Les Miserables because he saw the disparity, right, of what was going on. There are tons of books on this shit. Okay, there's tons of novels, stories written by these authors who witnessed it or lived it. And thank God Charles Dickens, it was a partial experience, but it must have traumatized him and shook him to the very core. You know, when you look at Oliver Twist, and when you really like, you know, it's great. It's a great musical, whatever. It's amusing, whatever, however you've seen it. But I've usually seen it as a musical, right? It's fucking heart-wrenching that they were treating 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, and there are countries where that's happening, and they have changed the laws in our country to allow children, I think, as young as 14 to work. Did you know that? The labor laws literally recently changed. Okay, so yeah, shit's happening. Shit's already changing. Okay.
Can I just draw attention to a comment? Smellentine 222. You know, is Oliver Twist a fictional character? Like, I think you're coming across as somebody who's just here to be antagonistic. Nevertheless, you will be treated with respect. Oliver Twist was a fictional character based on what was actually happening at the time. So a lot of what Dickens wrote about is stuff that he actually saw. And it's, yes, Oliver Twist was a fictional character, just as many fictional characters are actually based on real situations that have been experienced. Yeah. Additionally, we all sit in our, you know, in our comfortable Western homes, right? Buying mass-produced stuff that's probably being produced by child labour elsewhere in the world. How does that affect the planet? How does that negatively affect the planet? Well, it negatively affects the planet because it affects the humanity in all of us. If we are contributing to profiteers of child labour, we are taking on not just that karma, but we are also supporting their businesses. We are supporting their practice. That is how it negatively affects the planet, and it affects us all.
I think we know how it affects it. I think that in terms of Oliver Twist, have you honestly never seen?
Don't oversimplify. Look, nobody's oversimplifying or generalizing apart from you, my love. And if you want to have a genuine conversation about what's actually happening in the world, why don't you educate yourself about what's happening in Congo, right? Where the components of your mobile phone come from. Why don't you educate yourself about what's happening in Bangladesh, right, with child labour? So nobody's oversimplifying or generalizing here. Child labour is happening elsewhere in the world.
No, hang on, let me handle this. Let's have a general conversation by giving facts, not generalization. Let me explain something to you, my friend. Generalization is the fastest way we can get to massive truth. You want facts? Get on Google, get on DuckDuckNow, go anywhere you want, and just put in child labor. And if you really, really want to know, all the shit's going to spit out on your screen, and there it will be. It is there if you want it. Now, going back to Oliver Twist, we have fucking photographs of this shit. We have photographs from the 1800s showing it, literally. We're showing, we're seeing little British boys, little French girls with arms. They lost their arms or lost a foot. Okay. I grew up reading stories about that when I was a little girl, when I was 8 or 9. We are much better educated. I'm just gonna be straight up. Fuck this. We are much better educated in Europe, and we were much better educated in Europe in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And there was a massive U-turn on some certain countries with education and literature that spoke about things that are already forgotten in just one generation, which is shocking to me. But in terms of child labor, no one's making that up. Just like we have fucking prison labor right here in this country. We have prison labor. We all know it. We have for-profit jails. where they have to, where some of the states have contracts with these prisons to make sure that they have a certain amount of people to work in their prisons. In other words, they're criminalizing homelessness. That's not generalization. It is really actually happening. They're criminalizing homelessness, and most of the people homeless are in the elderly population, single mothers, children as usual. And so we're talking about a massive shift of this concept of family values literally collapsing in front of our very eyes. One of the massive issues going on is that many of the homeless elderly, many, not all, but many are actually veterans. They're veterans. So we've actually made it okay to arrest veterans who served in this country and who are handicapped in some way. Do you understand that this is not, when you say generalized, of course, we're having a conversation. If you want actual data, this is your responsibility, just like me and Andromeda have not only just researched, but we've been studying this shit since we were children. Why? Because we pulled out books on these types of subjects. Because we wanted to know what had happened to the Native Americans. We wanted to know what had happened to the Irish. We wanted to know what happened to people who were colonized. We wanted to know about child labor because we were children and we'd heard about it from our parents because our parents were empathetic and consciously aware and wanted us to know, to be grateful for what we had, because other kids were living this fucking reality, which was living and working and weaving rugs and making handbags, and there were 5, 6, and 7. This is not new concepts. This has been going on for centuries. But and just like there's all kinds of other horrific things going on, and what we can do instead of asking for real points of data is, literally while you're talking to me, if you have your laptop, I don't have it. I'm not. My laptop's downstairs. My son's sleeping. It's fucking 4:00 in the morning, so I'm not going to do that. But if you really want to, you can go ahead and Google shit. Put child labor in Google. Just Google it. Go to.
I mean, if you want facts, let's talk some facts, right? And there are reports released.
No, I'm sorry. No.
Reports released.
No, hang on. People get arrested that break the law, but not for being homeless or a veteran. I'm sorry, where do you live? Where do you live? Because now you're challenging me. There are laws that have been passed in America that have made homelessness illegal, and they're fucking arresting homeless people that include veterans. I saw it in videos. This is known. So where have you been? Where are you living? Okay? I mean, really, emotional reasoning, you better be emotional, my friend, because if you're lobotomizing your passion, you know what? Let me just put it this way to you. I don't have time for bullshit. This is ridiculous. I'm sorry. I'm pissed because
so am I, because just come in here and put out word salad. I mean, let's be real about child labour, okay? And you can see yourself out, that's fine. But let's be real about child labour. There was a report in 2020, which I read at the time, that said that there were 160 million children worldwide in forced labour, right? And that includes countries like Bolivia, Central African Republic, India, Kenya, Tanzania, Venezuela, Zambia, Zimbabwe, okay? China, okay, where children are employed to make lithium ion batteries, Cote d'Ivoire for chocolate, enjoy your chocolate, Democratic Republic of Congo, well, we all know what's going on there, Ghana, Malawi, Malaysia for biofuel, cooking oil, etc. Netherlands for chocolate, right? I could go on and on and on and on about this because I've read it, but it's your responsibility to actually look at this stuff and not use the word abundance when it involves screwing over other innocent human beings.
No, but the fact that she says that,
I know.
that homelessness is not illegal shows her she's either deluded or mentally deranged. Because is any American going to tell me that's not a law? Because it's a law. It passed. They made homelessness illegal. They're arresting people left and right. They're taking their homes. If the van, the car is not registered, they're taking people's belongings and throwing it in the truck. What the fuck is going? Do you see what's going on here? Do you see the level of ignorance? If she's an American and she's saying that, I don't know what planet she's been on. Do you understand? But I'm sorry, I'm going to be an asshole for a minute. These are the people going to universities and are learning nothing. They don't know how to think. They don't know how to research. They don't know how to think. They don't know how to digest, process information. And they honestly live on another planet. I'm glad she was asking if I was going to do hypnotherapy. I wouldn't work for her if she was the last person. I wouldn't work for her at all. When people are that, I can't. I'm like, yeah, done. Believe it or not, it's one of the reasons why I do phone call before I take on clients. Because if I listen to this kind of shit, yeah, we're done. Thank you. Have a great day. Have a great life. God bless you. Goodbye. Because if you can't understand the simplest shit in front of your face, I don't even own a TV set and I know this shit. I haven't had a TV in 20 years. So, Andromeda just riddled off all these countries, but our country has passed laws to make children as young as 14, right? And they're single mothers that are going to need the second income and waiting for their child to turn 14 instead of our government being kind enough not to send billions, I'm not talking billions of dollars. There's a book called Poverty in America. Okay, I don't know, I can't remember. It's in my shopping cart. I want to buy it. And this guy said that if we tax the rich appropriately, not us being taxed, rich, meaning the 100 millionaires and the nosebleed club of the $100 million crowd and above. Guess what would happen? We would get a resource of $175 billion per year, which we could distribute evenly across this country, and poverty would be eradicated within 1 year or less than a year. Months. So poverty is by design. Laws that break the soul of a man or woman is by design. Why do you think there are sacred divine masculines and feminines who are in runner-chaser dynamics? I'm going to bring it back to twin flames because this is why. Because when a man is busy just surviving, when a woman is they don't have time for lovey-dovey shit. They're holding on with everything they can. Watch the movie Strange Days with Angela Bassett and Ralph Fiennes. I'm not kidding. Watch the movie. Watch how she can't even be in her feminine energy. She has to be like a man. Okay, watch that movie. It's an amazing movie. It's called Strange Days, and it's about replay. It's about the toxicity of computers if we don't use them correctly. It's one of the most brilliant movies. Again, it's called Strange Days with Ralph Fiennes and Angela Bassett. Spiritual law demands that any fuckery is first shown to us, like the Matrix, right? And if we consent, and consent is doing nothing. Consent means apathy. And for the most part, we've been apathetic as a people. That's why they can go on to the next stage of oppression and the next stage. But these movies are their way of saying, we're about to fuck you over again. Here's the plan. And every time we say nothing, we consent. Sometimes being silent is consent. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. Sorry if I fucking...
No, I just think these people who come in and try to, hijack a discussion when they've absolutely no understanding. But also, she said it leaves room for abundance, as if like child labor. I mean, that straight up reptilian thinking right there, right? And it just, I think but what happened is that you and I just felt this energy, right? That horrible, entitled, provocative energy when we were having a discussion about the ascension, and she comes in with this nonsense. I'm assuming it's a she, but it's good, right? It's good to see how these people behave.
Yeah,
it's good to see their toxicity.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is good to see the toxicity, but honestly, I'm sick of it because that's actually, there's more of these people than there are people like us. The 11 of us listening to this or speaking about this, so there's 11 plus you and me. No, actually, hang on, 12 of us, because that includes me. There's 12 of us tonight. But if I was showing my, TITS, wow, they'd be like, I'd have like 400 people watching me right now. Let's be honest. This is the consciousness we're dealing with. That's why every one of you is so important to this transformation that we're looking at. In fact, there was somebody that said, all we need is it all we, the 1% that's been, fucking with us for so many centuries. All we need is 1% to turn the table on them. That's it. All we need is 1%. That's it. And game over. Not joking. So we don't need that many people. Not at all. Can anyone figure out what 1% is from 8 billion? It's not that much. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, it is what it is. Yeah. Please see yourself out in many ways. I am so sick of these people, and I'll see myself out like I care. Anyway, any other questions or comments? I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm done.
No, I hear you. It's just like these. It's just, yeah, they're irritating, and they kind of need to be told. And I mean, she was still saying, "Can you tell me which countries?" After I'd named countries, just piss off, right? Just piss off with your bullshit, and go and watch the Dancing Girls, because that's your level of consciousness.
Once somebody dyed their hair 3 colors, fuck it. Then you can be woke. Whatever.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, thank you, Jessica. You're such a light. Thank you. But I think if we bring it back to the original idea of Yeshua, and
I think I just thought of him just kicking the fucking tables, going, "You're a fucking asshole." It's funny we got from the Bible. That's interesting. I wonder why. See, they have to leave a little bit of, like you said, spice, Jessica. They got to leave. They can't completely pasteurize the Bible. Maybe they were being feeling guilty by stripping the Gospels, right? What do you think about that?
they had to leave. It's like any method of propaganda, okay, or any method of lying to people. 85% of what they say is true, or at least it appears true. And then they'll hit you with the 15% of bullshit, and you still believe it because 85% of what they've said resonates.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I love that because that's massive manipulation, right? It's almost a sales job. It's a con job. It's con. So we're dealing with a lot. But there's a lot we have to do in this particular stage of the game. And I'm telling you straight up, you are mandated. It's up to you what you do. You got free will, of course, and free will is a double-edged sword. Don't get me wrong on that, but you better make a choice, in my opinion, humbly put to you and with great respect, that you start calling people out on their shit. Definitely do it more diplomatically than me, absolutely, but definitely do it. That means correct people, correct people, call them on their shit. Sometimes you have to call them on their shit on the spot. You know what I mean? And I think that each and every one of us has to become that light shining toxicity or shining light upon light. But if we keep being silent, the silent majority, right? The silent majority, if you keep being silent, we're not going to win this. We're going to be looking at the 1% for another 100 years. I'm not joking, because, and probably even longer, because you realize with AI and everything that's going on, we're going to desensitize, we're going to pasteurize language so that the next generation that's already been muzzled during the lockdown, right? You remember that with the children, right? Taking away their oxygen. By the way, that's mentioned in Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, where the betas get less oxygen than the alphas. Did you know that? It's in the book. And here comes here comes the lockdown with the little masks and taking away the very thing that actually heals the body is, I don't know, oxygen. What an idea. It's like, oh my God, I'm just ranting. I think I'm done. Anyway, tell me what else you wanted to mention.
No, I think we've covered a lot.
Yeah.
And we've had a troll. Sorry, excuse that noise. One of my cats is eating paper, and then I've just been smacked for trying to take it away from her. So I think I'm done. I think I've got 2 hungry cats.
I got you. Well, Brain Free says, I feel like influence is just another word for getting hypnotized. Okay. I mean, I can't disagree. Thank you for the rose. I can't disagree. There's nothing to disagree. Influence is being hypnotized. Influence yourself more than that, and surround yourself with what I call Doc Holidays and poets and rebels and Steve Jobs and Louise Hayes and Deepak Chopra's and artists and philosophers, and you want to surround yourself with people who think, who push against the status quo, who demand more, who don't consent, who aren't apathetic. You want to surround yourself with people who have passion and know that there's a better way. And so that's the most important thing. So you're feeding your cat. So, okay, so I'm going to wrap it up. I wanted to send you all much love on your journey. This is not an easy time. This is probably probably to follow your own moral. Yes, to follow your own moral, your own, your own compass and your compass of truth. Again, as long as you're not harming anyone, you're fucking good to go. The minute you harm someone, in this, I can tell you for a fact, having experienced this with watching people do fuckery, the karma is a boomerang that happens pretty fast, within a week, within a month, less than a year. Trust me, I do this for a living. I watch what happens. Clients will tell me this person did this, and they'll say, well, how karma works. By the way, I have a video on that just so you can watch it on my YouTube channel. And it's like 45 minutes or something like that. But I break down karma, and believe me. So when I say to you, as long as you do no harm, you are fine. You are gold. You're gold standard. You don't have to worry. All right, Andromeda, you want to say goodbye, or should I wrap it up?
Goodbye. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you. All right, namaste, my lovelies. I will upload this live on YouTube. It might take a while because it has to process through TikTok. I've got 2 more videos that I just uploaded on YouTube, and you can look at it. Look me up on YouTube. Just type in Sacred Intimacy Tarot, or go to my profile page, go on my link tree, and you'll see a link directly to my YouTube channel. All the lives that are good, that are worthy, are uploaded on that channel, so you can check it out. And if you want, especially if you need to get your nervous system relaxed, you may want to go on my pinned on my profile and do the Ho'oponopono guided meditation just to get your chakras cleared. So, because this was an intense conversation, and you may want to recalibrate your chakras and forgive yourself or whatever. So you may want to do that. So it's pinned on my profile. Thanks for great discussion and learning. Absolutely, Jessica. And thank you for adding so much. Thank you, Brain Freeze. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, all of you. But if you've missed any of this, it's there. And then the previous live I did, I had a massive amount of oracle readings. You may want to check that out. It'll be fun. All right. Sending you much love on your journey. Now